In previous years, a single team dominating in F1 might have led to an arbitrary rule change, aiming to close the pack for the following year. Remember when Ferrari's early 2000s dominance was miraculously ended by 2005's no tyre changes rule, and Bridgestone got its compounds completely wrong? Well, in 2024, there haven't been any knee-jerk reactions at all to Red Bull's total and utter devastation of the 2023 F1 season. Unlike last year's tweaks to the ground effect formula, which detailed a small change to the floor height dimensions to limit porpoising, the 2024 rules are effectively the same as last year's. With relatively few changes from 2023, it appears that 2024 will be 2023 plus, giving the teams the opportunities to right the wrongs of last season without actively looking to sabotage Red Bull's fantastic form. Convergence is the key buzzword here. The prevailing theory is that with settled rules, Red Bull will start to reach a point of diminishing returns, while the other teams continue upon their trajectory and catch up. It appears that most are set to follow in Red Bull's development direction, something that we'll see soon in February's Bahrain testing. With a lack of changes this year and a reasonably similar rule set between 2022 and 2023, this should offer plenty of data between the years to inform teams whether a certain design philosophy does or doesn't work. The most visually obvious marker has been the sidepod design. That's because it's an area intrinsically linked to floor design, which has been the real performance booster ever since the reintroduction of venturi tunnels in 2022. In theory, most teams will follow Red Bull with their 2024 sidepod designs, and after seeing the RB18 and RB19 blitz the opposition, why wouldn't you? But even copying F1's most dominant car will only get you so far, and the remaining teams must not only understand what their design is, but how it works so well with the rest of the car, and add their own value to the concept. What we don't expect to see is Ferrari or Mercedes rolling back to their previous sidepod concepts. Instead of the downwash solution that Red Bull uses, Ferrari and Mercedes initially pushed their own variations on in-washing solutions. This led to a different method of gaining performance from the floor via surface pressure distribution on top of the floor, or via building a larger low-pressure expanse behind the car to improve the underbody suction. Although both teams stuck to their guns for the start of 2023, both teams binned off their zero pod and bathtub pods respectively through the season. This meant that both teams were restricted by the infrastructure already in place, since chassis and internal components aren't as easily changed in today's cost-cap managed championship. Mercedes technical director James Allison revealed that the team had lost 0.2 seconds in its switch to a downwashing design, but this was a worthy sacrifice for the greater development potential that it offered. With a clean sheet design for 2024, building their cars around this is much more achievable. One step back for two forward, it would seem. The variations will be in how the aerodynamicists choose to fine-tune their designs, such as enhancing the direction of airflow over the top of the sidepods with a clear channel built into it, much like Aston Martin's 2023 Challenger. But the cautionary tale remains. Copying a successful design is one thing, building something successful is quite another. Despite being an area largely hidden, it's floor technology that remains the biggest ticket item, and owing to the scarcity of pictures showing the floors in their full glory, these have remained a closely guarded secret. At least until Sergio Perez's Red Bull RB19 was craned out during the Monaco Grand Prix, where all was revealed. Ever since 2022, the nature of the Venturi tunnel floor has changed the game, with performance gains shifting from low-speed corners to the high-speed turns. Building the floor around the widest range available across all cornering types has been the main target, particularly in slow-speed conditions. Actually, you know what we've not had in a while? That's right, science time. Because downforce generated increases with the square of velocity for a wing body, or in this case a venturi tunnel, this puts the focus on maximising the other variables that affect downforce to collect more load at low speed. If the RB19 had any weaknesses, it would be these slow speed conditions. Its reduced performance ceiling in Monaco and Singapore, both tracks known for the lower speed corners, suggest this will be a key area of research for the 2024 car. As suggested by a couple of paddock figures, it's likely no coincidence that its sister team has found incredible strength in this area, particularly with its floor upgrade for last year's season-ending Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Moving on, another area that's crucial in F1's tech development is suspension. A few years back, an ex-F1 designer once described suspension design as purely aerodynamic, as teams had largely converged upon the best solutions. This led to a wishbone arrangement and the pull rod versus push rod decision being solely based on wind tunnel results. But nowadays, with the very different Venturi tunnel downforce setups, the suspension package has become an increasingly important platform to build upon. Retaining a stable platform for the floor to operate is vital, particularly when using the floor's edge to keep the underbody sealed. It's why teams have started to experiment with the positioning of suspension members at the front end, as their placement relative to the overall centre of gravity can imbue the car with anti-dive properties. This ensures that if load builds at the front, the floor doesn't lose performance with any pitching moments. Further back, the field is currently split on rear suspension design. In 2023, McLaren, Red Bull, Alpine, Alfa Romeo and AlphaTauri ran a push-rod rear suspension setup, likely in the interests of packaging, while the rest opted for the time-tested pull-rod rear. But interestingly, with front suspension, all teams opted for push-rods apart from McLaren and Red Bull. It's a difficult balancing act. In 2022, most teams attempted to run their cars low and with stiff springs, and encountered porpoising as a result. But Red Bull excelled by generating a comparatively high level of downforce while running the car ever so slightly higher up. And in 2023, Ferrari was able to dial in a healthy level of compliance over curbs to assist its prowess in slow-speed corners. Finding a layout that offers a bit of everything in the handling department will be the goal for the vehicle dynamicists. Overall, 2024's technical regulations are consistent with 2023's. There are minor touches, although they probably won't have any real effect on performance. The main one is for a small vent on the chassis to ensure that the drivers receive some extra cooling in cases of extreme heat. This comes after the intense humidity of last year's Qatar Grand Prix. Logan Sargent retired with heat exhaustion issues, Lance Stroll complained that he was passing out in some of the corners, and Alex Albon, among others, required medical attention. So the cooling scoop will be on top of the chassis bulkhead, but its size is strictly regulated to ensure no team can gain any kind of advantage from it. The inlet will only be small, but it should have a tangible effect on driver comfort should the scenario arise. The floor fences and edge wings will also require minor changes to their construction. No metallic components or inserts will be allowed except for brackets, fasteners and small areas of wear protection. This is likely a safety consideration just in case any of those components break away from the floor. Wheel tethers have also been strengthened to limit the possibility of detachment. And on a somewhat lighter note, regulations over LED augmented wheel covers have been removed. Initially, these were supposed to provide visual information to the spectators, but since the introduction to the rules in 2022, we've never even seen them on the grid. At the end of the day, defining a concept for an F1 car is one thing, but ensuring that it has the potential to respond positively to developments is quite another. Take Haas's struggle over 2023, for example. The team struggled to implement updates throughout the season, and its big-ticket upgrade for the United States Grand Prix, featuring the downwash sidepod concept, did not yield the promised performance boost. Instead, it offered such negligible improvements that it simply ended up being a matter of preference between the two drivers. Kevin Magnussen preferred the newer spec car, Nico Hülkenberg rolled back to the old design. Conversely, McLaren put together a car that struggled initially, but was receptive to upgrades throughout the first half of the year, and these upgrades catapulted the team from the back to the very front. So for the sake of F1's spectacle, it's hoped that with a consistent set of regulations, a common understanding of the best methods will offer conversions to the grid. And if that's the case, then 2024 could be a season to savour.